essentially, this dovetail, what we have just ended, dovetail very nicely into actually our second stage of the implement phase. Right, Dr. Go is not here, so I give you all a hint. All right, remember the 5 stages as part of your exam. Okay. All right, the 5 stages. Remember, it must be based on BCMI methodology, not what you think. All right, it must be that 5 stages. That's why I kept emphasizing the 5 phases of the implement. Okay, so take note, right? Just remember, stage 1 is this: identify important business, right? Now we're moving on to map process and resources, right? We just covered a little bit, right? And then we will end for today, and the remaining we will cover in the next session. Okay. All right. So what does this mapping process and resources help you achieve? So once the important business services have been identified, like the exercise we went through and what we have been discussing in the stage 1, right? Okay. Your organization need to map out the technologies, the people, the processes, which I shared already, right? The facilities, the suppliers, the information you require to fulfill all these services, all right? And this can include requirements internally within your organization, right? But it also, we mentioned about third party, right? Which is actually supply chain and the business partner and the fourth party as well. So don't forget about that. Don't forget, okay? So mapping of the processes and resources is the mapping process for operational resilience to identify dependencies and connection. So again, now leverage on your business continuity, right? Upstream, downstream, all right? If you have not done it comprehensively, take this opportunity to review, right? And all these are between the people, processes, information I mentioned, right? Your facilities, your third party vendor, right? They are providers to the critical business services that you have identified during the stage 1. Okay, so the interdependencies and interconnection, all right? And I've added, so Virginia, you read this slide, right? Third parties, including intra, group and service provider, as well as fourth parties, suppliers to suppliers. Okay, very, very, very important. And if you look at the diagram on the right-hand side of this slide, okay, right, put it all together, all right, this is how I like to use diagram to help you remember, all right? Studies have shown that people remember diagram more than words, okay? So if you put it all together, process, people, technology, facilities, which are all the words here, the heart of it, the lens that you are wearing is, the focus is your critical or important business service or your critical operation. Got it? Very easy. This slide is very easy, all right? It takes me a few minutes to knock it out. But you all know, earlier you shared with me, right, in the exercise, all right, to get it done, to connect the dots is not so easy. That's why, again, the pitfall, all right? If you must invite the right party, right, into your group. I don't know whether you have a working group. I believe you must have, all right? Just make sure you have the relevant people in your working group or whatever you call it, all right, your committee or whatever you call it, right? To make sure that they are able to provide all this information to you. Okay, all right. And I mentioned earlier already, our fourth party, third party, all these interdependencies in my previous organization, they were all taken care of under the service of vendor risk management. It's an underpinning service. Okay, right? Okay, definition of interconnection we covered in module 1. I'm not going to go through again. These are pretty self-explanatory, right? And then interdependencies, similarly. Okay, so the mapping is a process to identify, right? Again, it's a repeat. Okay, challenges in mapping. I think I shared continuously what are some of these challenges already. Complexity of business processes, not so simple, right? Especially Dan and Virginia, you mentioned you have how many entities, how many different bots? All right, it's humongous. That's why earlier I mentioned about prioritizing your CBN, right? Prioritize. If your timing, all these are finite. I'm quite sure you know how to do it, but take note, all these slides is there. They are all there to remind you. Result in prolonged downtime if not mapped properly, meaning to say if you miss some of the processes in between because you don't understand the process well, all right? All right. So this, if you don't identify it properly, it can result, if there's a downtime, it can result in the prolonged because there is a missing. That's why I don't know about you all, but whenever we do our exercise, for the more than 20 years that I'm doing business continuity crisis management, all right, for the 20 years, every time we conduct an exercise, inevitably there will be some areas for improvement. It's never, we can never get it right. We can never say it's that we got it 100% right. No, all right. There's always areas for improvement. It could be, most common is a line of business update certain function or update certain processes, but the rest of us will not apprise. But our risk department has since taken on board this role to do the policing using the Archer system. Now you see the magic of leveraging on what you have. Don't have to reinvent the wheel. And thanks, Dane, for sharing, right? You are using the Fusion, and Fusion is offering the op risk component as well. So similarly, I think RSA Archer have got a component on operational resiliency as well, right? And guess what? They actually anonymize. They actually use our use case to share with their prospective customers. Yeah, but they anonymize it. We ask them to make sure that you don't mention the name. All right, and how we are using it from end to end as an underpinning service across the whole organization, including our audit, including our compliance. All right, our compliance, our audit, we have since expanded. Remember the 3 stakeholder? So we have since onboarded our audit team. We have since onboarded our compliance team as well. So altogether, when I left a couple of months ago, there were altogether 5 stakeholders using the system. Okay, all right. So if you have the baseline of all this within your organization, it will definitely help in your operational resiliency journey. Okay, believe me. Then result in increased likelihood of operational disruption if not mapped in real time. I guess this is referring to the consequence of not accurately mapping the interconnection and interdependencies, all right? And it will lead to that prolonged, not only the prolonged downtime, right? It will also increase the likelihood of the operational disruption because you miss out considering this particular bit of the equation altogether. So my analogy of all this is like a jigsaw puzzle, right? Every bit of it, okay, every piece will eventually form your big picture. And the completed jigsaw puzzle is actually your operational resiliency piece of work. Okay. Great. Now, okay, read this first, yeah. Mapping interconnection. Use a risk-based approach. I shared my example. Use scenario analysis to identify potential operational disruption. At the beginning of this session, we talk about those disruption. Conduct regular assessment to ensure completeness. Use data flow. So some of you shared, right? How you map all this now. And I also shared, examples like you can use swim lanes to map some of these processes, organize them into front, middle office, something for you to consider. All right. Charlie, I'm going to put you in a difficult position now. I believe in module 1, you mentioned that you have done this mapping, right? Although earlier you shared that you have 2 disparate systems that you're trying to put it. Can you resonate with any of these considerations when you were doing your mapping, or for that matter, the rest of you as well? Dane, Virginia, all right, Veronica, Siti, take note. All right. So not only Charlie lah, maybe the rest
Yes,
of you as well, Virginia, Veronica, can you resonate?
Yeah, I mean, definitely when I see the risk-based approach to prioritizing, as I said, there has been a program in my organization that predates the Operation Resilience, and that's looking to map end-to-end all of the bank's what they call product or service enablement processes, and the level of detail. I think you mentioned, earlier, having to have a special printer to be able to actually just print off one of these maps, onto something that can be visible and legible. So from an Operation Resilience perspective, at the moment, the Operation Resilience program is trying to take more of a risk-based approach in how it's approaching that mapping, given the tight timeframes that they're working to, the level of detail in which you can go to when mapping these resources is almost kind of infinite, really, because you can be going down to task level deep details, and particularly for services or processes that are outsourced. You could go to 4-party chain within that. So we are having to try and use a risk-based approach for what we're mapping from an Operation Resilience perspective. But we would expect that information to mature over time. And as I said, part of the problem at the moment is trying to overcome this, having kind of dual work streams, delivering and doing different things, but having very similar overlaps, and ultimately trying to get us to a single source.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. I think I went through that myself. All right. And I did not share with y'all. It took us about, because we were driving ourselves. There were no regulatory requirement then. We were driving ourselves. So it took us about 3 years to then say that, wow, we can confidently say that at least we can sleep, or the management can sleep comfortably at night. If there's any consolation to any of you, right? But again, using the prioritization method, if you know exactly, right? I think since you all shared, right, and there's a Virginia also shared earlier, right? You're very clear on like, for example, the loss notification is something that you want to focus, right? So it's something that you can anchor straight away, all right? And then continue to build and build and build and build until, that's why it's called operational resilience. All right, it can be done overnight. All right, I think you'll be here to stay at least for next 3 to 5 years for organization to really mature. That's my personal opinion. All right. Okay, great. All right, and then remember the regular assessment. There's only one thing I want to add, and I shared earlier already. Right? If you want to push the boundary a little bit, get an external validation. All right, you can start small by getting another department to do it. All right, like our case, we got our mid-office people to do it. Right? So something, or you may want to conduct this assessment during your scenario testing. We talk more about that during the scenario testing stage, right? That can be achieved as well. It's continual improvement. All right. So with that, okay, so yeah, Dr. Go inserted the map on the right-hand side, right? So that just to remind you a very simple way of doing it, all right? Color coded, okay? He color coded the red one is more like specific activity to deliver one of the IBS, right? And then the black one are internal activities which govern the firm overall, for example, right? So if you have not done so, like City, something for you to take note, but the rest of you, I think you have been there, done that, but something for you to consider. Okay, so with that, this is my last slide. Oh, perfect timing. Any final comments from any of you? We will continue next week to discuss more about the mapping using more example, okay, and the remaining 3 stages. So far, we covered 2 stages, right? So meanwhile, forget about the 3 comments. So meanwhile, if you can just type in the Zoom, just like what you did last week and 2 weeks ago, type in what is or are the key takeaway for you in this session, or anything that you're expecting that is not being shared so far or we have not covered, right? Because we just want to make sure that a lot of your objective in attending this is to know more, best practice, see what the others are doing, all right? So let us know. We will try to do whatever we can. But more importantly is, are there any key takeaways that you have, all right? While you are thinking and typing, okay, please remember your pre-course preparatory workbook, okay? If you realize we already covered 4 examples. So earlier, I think, if I'm not wrong, some of you are like Veronica prepared, okay? So you are able to share off the cuff, all right? Next week, we will be starting with the mapping of the process of the CBS straight away, right? Which is your activity 4 in your workbook, okay? And we covered a little bit already. So if you can complete, we have completed 1, 2, 3, 4. You have not for learning or for you to remember, do it. All right, just do something so that you can always use it to refer. And then it'll be useful if you can complete the rest activity, especially 5, 6, and 7. All right, 4, if you can do it, it'll be good, because it'll be very fruitful for our next week discussion. You will notice how I run this session, right? When we touch on the session, you share, and I share with you my examples as well, okay? Then you raise your hand, you have a question?
Yeah, Kenneth, I was just going to ask, I know that we were preparing some slides for today's discussion. I think they carry over a little bit into the next discussion as well. Should we submit anything today, or do we wait until the next session?
Okay, so I leave it to you. We are quite flexible for this particular course. I would say for this OR, okay? The reason is something new, right? And then we want to see, honestly, we want to see how far we can push the boundary, okay? If you have it ready, Dr. Go showed you just now, right? You can submit it, okay? And then definitely, if you submit it, we will go through during the session, right? Then you get the comments. Again, remember, right? It's everything about validation. So if you want, if you're comfortable with this session, myself and the participant, then you share, we will be able to give you our feedback, and you can treat it as a form of your review, your assessment, right? Otherwise, like what Dr. Go said in module 1 as well, you can submit at the end of session 2, no problem. We will still give you our comments, but that is without the inputs from the rest of the participants.
Can I just clarify, Kenneth? This is the workbook that Dr. Go would have referred us to previously, and we've been completing. This isn't a separate and second workbook, is it?
No, it's in module 2. You go to your e-campus is divided into module 1 and module 2, right?
Yeah.
Correct. You go to module 2, right? that workbook has got 7 activities. The first workbook, I think, has got 8 activities, if I'm not wrong.
Okay.
This one,
Okay.
remember I said in the slide you mentioned 6. Sorry, I don't know whether the admin side updated it already, but it should be 7 activities. Yeah. And which is very much in line with what we did in the first four exercise already. So the next 3 will be 5, 6, and 7. Got it, Charlie?
Yeah. Yeah, understood. Yeah.
If you have difficulty, reach out to us. Otherwise, download from the module 2 eCampus. Okay. Have you all typed in? I talk too much, right? Sorry, got to go already. Have you all typed in? Takeaway is a common challenges we'll all deal with. Okay. We'll be covering self-assessment in next session. Self-assessment. Charlie, you're asking me a question, is it? Will we be covering self-assessment in the next session?
Yeah, just insofar as, I mean, I think you're obviously asking us to kind of maybe highlight anything that we might hope to cover or not. I'm not sure if it's a common requirement across different jurisdictions, but I know certainly within Ireland and the UK, a key component of the regulators' requirements is, to provide an annual self-assessment.
Yeah, we can do that under the continuous improvement, the lessons learned. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
So we definitely will cover examples, and I'll share with you my real life examples as well. Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for your comments. Virginia, is dependencies mapping is likely going to be. Just remember the humongous spider web. I like the analogy. Starting to feel better about what level to think, and also realizing that we need to be thoughtful about level of detail of our mapping work and the amount of time, resources, collaboration with others. Yes. Spot on, Dane. Is something that organization really underestimate, especially the bosses, right? They'll just say, oh, you have the risk department, you have this, you have the operation team. For us, we call it front and mid, like, right? You see, you have the front, mid, and back office people. Why is it so difficult? But there's always a day-to-day job, all right? While we have our priority, they also have their priority. Okay, so you are spot on, right? The time, the resources, the collaboration with others will take time. Okay, so don't be ambitious, prioritize, start small. Like most of you have shared, I think that's what you're doing, and then progress into something bigger, a bigger animal, I call it. Yeah. Remember my version, 3 versions. It took us 2023. So 2015 to 2020, 8 years for 3 versions. Yeah. And the 3rd version was done during COVID, actually. Yeah. The one that I said done by another department. Yeah, it was done during COVID period. Yeah. Okay, Veronica, you're most welcome. All right, so maybe next session you can share more with us. Hopefully you got better internet connection. All right, and then Virginia segment help confirming that we are on the right track as well. Okay, great. Yeah. So if you think that there are things that we may not have covered, do let us know. All right, and then we get everybody to help validate. All right. After all, if we put our head together, it can be one form of a best practice to adopt. Okay, I'm not going to hold you guys up any further. Thank you very much.